Welcome to NewsNation. This is where right and left come to be reasonable. And let me start. We're in November, which is also known as Movember. Look how good my mustache is doing. I think this is supposed to go the other way, but mine goes down. Now, will you donate? Will you put up on the screen how to donate to Movember? Please help me raise the money. It's for men's health, cancer research, healthcare research and treatment. I'm doing it with the brothers and sisters at the East Hampton Fire Department. These people are so good. They're always looking for ways to give back. I have no problem embarrassing myself with this poor excuse for whatever is under my nose if it's going to a good cause. So please give so I can get this off. Now, that's easy. Here's hard, okay? Making things better in America. That's not what this shutdown is about. It's not what it was ever about. Yes, the shutdown should begin the process of ending tonight. God forbid anything be one step and done in Congress, right? It can't end until the House gets it, and we'll get to that part. But the Senate is going to vote supposedly tonight. It's doing what it does best right now, which is unnecessary process. Look at them all sitting around. Hey, what do you think? And who do you think's winning? And what do you think? And I don't know. Do you have any ideas? I don't know. In the end, there's going to be a final vote to end the shutdown in the Senate. Then it goes to the House, where it will likely pass because the Republicans have the numbers and want to reopen it. And the Democrats are actively whipping right now in the House to vote no. Why? Well, to answer that, you got to go to the question of, so who won here? Now, I'll flip it. Who lost? Us. Why? Because there are all these people who had to suffer all this pain and did nothing wrong. And for what? To make a point. Okay, I agree with the point that the Democrats are trying. Well, not really the Democrats. Again, it's getting complicated already. It's not the Democrats. It's the far left part of the Democrats that want this. Why? Because they're right about what's wrong. Healthcare costs are killing us in this country. Wait, no, that's not what it's about. It's about the subsidies for the ACA, and that's about giving people coverage. That's a small piece of the affordability crisis. The access of people who need subsidies to get plans under the ACA are a very small part of the healthcare picture. Did you know that? No, why would you? Everybody's always trying to deceive you. But you got Medicare, Medicaid, then the subsidies to private employers who give insurance to people, and the unions where I get my insurance and many others do, like 160 million of us. Then you have the ACA group that they're talking about. So it's not the big part, but it makes people angry. You're throwing poor people off. That's compelling. They're right about what's wrong. But while the right is on the wrong side of those subsidies, the left knows they would never get what they want this way. Those on the new left want you to be angry at the 8 senators who will probably vote to reopen the government. And I say the new left because the Democratic Party, this matters to you, okay? The Democratic Party is beset by exactly what befell the once grand old party, which is now merely MAGA. Now it is the left, powered by populist outrage about affordability and some other more fringe aspects, but affordability is a real thing, and they're right to be outraged about it in America. They're right about what's wrong. But as was the case with MAGA, after that outrage, do they have the ideas to make it right? Now, I think the answer with MAGA to this point is no. Will this mega movement on the left do better? Takes you to another question. Is it reasonable to accuse the rest of the Democratic Party of quitting because they're trying to end this shutdown before they got a real concession on health care? I say hell no, because it was never going to happen this way. And I'm not being a cynic. I'm looking at history and logic. I've said from the beginning, okay? The Democrats have the right issue, affordability, health care specifically, the costs, but they're doing it the wrong way. Why? The facts. If you go all the way back to 1976, no shutdown has ever yielded any meaningful policy change at the behest of the minority. Fact. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care how they spin it. They are lying if they say anything else. President Reagan, President Bush, they had 2-3 day shutdowns where they got a little bit of a movement on the needle of what they were asking for at the time, but that was different. Okay? It was about presidents versus Congress. Even their own parties were kind of sideways with them with what they wanted. It was not what we've been dealing with in the modern era, which is a very limited competition of one side against the other. And the Democrats never gave the right a win when they started a shutdown. And neither side will reward a shutdown, because all you would then have is shutdowns. If you empower the minority that way, they will constantly attack the majority whenever they get sideways with them, which now is constantly. So they knew it would never happen. In fact, I do think it's meaningful that Thune, he's been saying it for a while, but he said it again tonight, the Senate Republican, John Thune, said you will get a vote on the subsidies. That's good, because when his caucus votes against them and tries to come up with explanation, all you're going to hear, and all these people will hear who care about access, is, wow, you really don't want these people to have this, and you gave a tax cut instead and paid for it with this? It's a bad look. But even that is not the change we need. The ACA subsidies are real, but they are a real symptom of the disease. The problem isn't just coverage. It is cost. The subsidies with the ACA get another 20 million or so coverage, but the prices for them and for 160 plus million more, you and me, are going to keep going up, even if the Democrats get what they want. What do you do about that? Now, here's the problem. This issue is so in the weeds, so complicated, so confusing, that it's really easy to twist it, and it's really convenient to just blame on why it's so bad and never offer anything close to a cogent fix. I'm telling you, the reason that it costs so much is complicated. Here's the easiest, simplest explanation, okay? Americans spend close to or double or slightly more than double, depending on the country and how you want to measure it, not because our outcomes are so much better, not because we have better care, but because our system allows the private sector to control largely, not exclusively, but largely, pricing and administrative process, especially in the private market that, again, represents the majority of us. Why? Well, a little bit of it is because that's how we've always done it. A lot of it is the industry employs a lot of people in every district, and they flood both sides with more money than anyone else, especially once you throw in pharma. And if you want an example of both sides choosing the few over the many, this is the issue. 7 in 10 of us say our health care system needs significant change or a complete rebuild. And our biggest complaint is not, I can't get care, it's I can't afford care. But both sides want that money. So instead, they've just battled over who's to blame, and each side has a boogeyman. And you're seeing a battle of the boogeymen, and that's where this is going to go in the near term, okay? For MAGA, who was the boogeyman? Big government, right? The ACA is the problem. The answer is to give more power to who? Big businesses. You'll have choice. You get to shop, right? But it's going to be the private sector that dominates. Why? Because big government is bad. But they never tried to make the ACA better because they wanted it to fail. And they've never had a better idea except privatize. That's why Trump will talk about anything but this issue. So now it's the left's turn. Why? MAGA didn't get it done. Affordability is worse. It's getting deeper. And they have the outrage. And the outrage is real, more real than any remedies. We're not talking about remedies. What is their boogeyman on the left? Big business is their boogeyman. What's their remedy? Big government. They don't want to fix the ACA either. Why? They want something shiny and new. Isn't that sad that what mattered so much and could have been a step in the right direction is now abandoned by everybody just in favor of the new? So it doesn't seem like you're saying what's always been said. Isn't that sad? So their new is what? Medicare for All, single payer, just like the rest of the world. It's not just like the rest of the world. Single payer is not done that simply really anywhere, and arguably not as well as we would want it to be anywhere, just on that basis. It's an oversimplification, but it makes a point, okay? Change, radical change. Now, what happens if you do Medicare for All, running everything through the federal government? Well, you're going to have problems with all the other stakeholders, unions, big corporations, the insurers, the providers, the hospitals, the doctors, pharma, the insurance companies, the finance guys on Wall Street that trade off a lot of their instruments. And the politicians don't want to deal with that, even though the majority of us want change. So all of that helps the left politically. Why? Because all of those people I just mentioned are the bad guys, right? Remember, which side had someone murder a healthcare CEO? Mangione was a radical lefty who believed big corporations, specifically the insurers, are evil. Now, Bernie Sanders is really the father of this movement. He has never, ever advocated anything like violence. But this idea, when it comes to healthcare and getting the big businesses out of it, that's Bernie. He'll probably be replaced. Why? He's too old. He's been saying the same thing for too long. They're going to want a new face, and they'll get one. But he is the father of fomenting righteous indignation, if arguably without his own workable remedy. Despite spending twice as much, he says, per capita, we're the only major company not to guarantee health care to all as a human right. Here's my problem with that. His solution is Medicare for All. Let's talk about it. It's a human right. Great. So you can get it, but what difference does it make if you can get it if you can't pay for it? Oh, you won't have to. It'll be free. Well, then who pays for it? Nothing's for free. Who pays? They don't have that part of the conversation. Why? Because you're pissed off and you want, and they offer for free. So you like it. So Medicare for All, is that a real solution? Kind of. It's mostly a slogan, which is why the Democrats with Bernie didn't do it when they did the ACA. Well, they didn't have the idea then? Yeah, they did. They didn't. Why? It's too complicated to change. You needed the states involved. You needed the private sector. It was about access. They went to access because it was easier to control than cost. They went to access in the Affordable Care Act. It should have been called the Accessible Care Act because it was easier to get done than dealing with the affordability issue. That's the truth. That is a misnomer, that legislation. The problem is now worse. People want change more. Now, they don't have a better way to make it happen than they did back then. Calling it a right, again, is fine. But it's not about access if you can't afford it once you get the access. He's ignoring how to pay for it. And that over 90% of Americans who get Medicare, guess what? First of all, 90% of Americans are already covered, all right? Yes, more people will not be covered if the subsidies don't go through and the other cuts that the right wants goes through to pay for their tax cuts. And that's bad on them. But what's better for all of us? Access is a thing. But that is the easier piece of affordability. Okay? Now, and a big slice of those who aren't insured aren't the poor who can't get it. They're young employed people who choose not to have health insurance because there's no ACA penalty anymore. And that was a political choice, and then they went to the court and they won it. It's not as simple as to say that the mandate was unconstitutional. It really isn't. It was that they did it through reconciliation. But again, that's in the weeds, and nobody wants complicated. So big business, bad. Big government, good. Medicare for All, good. Great for Twitter. Not once you have to have a real conversation. Why? A huge reason for the success of Medicare is what? Over half of the people eligible for Medicare get what? Medicare Advantage. Why? Privately administered, lower premiums for them, may cost us, the government, the people who have to pay for it, more overall. But studies show they have potentially better health outcomes than people on traditional Medicare. More choice, more add-ons, better management of their situation instead of just fee-for-service, paying all these different people for different things. Now, the left points, Canada is great, France is great, Germany is great. Of the three, Germany is the best. But those healthcare systems, can we do that? They're 100% single payer. They're not really 100% single payer. They're having add-ons, and it's happening more and more. Why? Because they had smaller, healthier, and populations that were more homogenous and easier to insure. Now that they're growing, diversifying, the systems in the UK and Canada specifically are facing more and more problems. What can be fixed? is how we pick winners and losers in this system. Because that's what you're doing. You're picking who wins and who loses. There's a really simple way to lower costs for all of us. This is true. I vetted it with people who actually know. This is their business, okay? We are literally one law away. Did you know that? A single rule. If Congress were to pass a cap on health care costs, that nobody gets paid more than we pay through Medicare, it would not only change a lot of cost structure right away, but it would create pressure that may change even more for the private sector cost, where 160 million of us get it. Two issues with it, okay? The second one literally makes me sick. But first is the biggie. All the stakeholders that I mentioned, they're coming after you. The lobbying, the unions, the hospitals, the doctors, the insurer. Everyone's going to say they're going to go out of business. The margins are too small. You can't do this to us. We're going to fire all these people in every one of your damn districts, and you're going to pay for it. All those who win in this system and what they mean will be part of the punishment. But here's the other reason. Here's why it really won't happen. All right? And look, I hope you take the time to listen to this a couple of times, okay? I know it's been long, but I'm telling you, I've been studying this for years. I've been frustrated by this for years because they keep playing you, not really lying to you, but they keep playing you and making you angry about things that they have no intention to fix because they want the money from the people who caused the problems. But the reason they won't pass this one law that would have a cascading effect, sure, there'd be problems, there'd be losers, but you, if you care about costs, would likely be a winner. But it won't happen. Why? The two parties don't want to give the other side credit for a win, even if it's better for all of us. What the two sides want most is not change. They want advantage over the other side, not the advantage of the country overall. The politicians prefer the division. They prefer outrage over problems than fixing the problems. I'm happy to have the conversation with anybody who wants to, but I will never lose on this proposition. Let's take a break. I've talked enough. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Again, this is not my opinion. This is not how I feel, all right? These are not secrets. We know why things cost what they do. We know what would change that. There is no will to make those kinds of changes, and there is no political will to do anything more than blame the other side. Let's hear from the lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Let's talk to people who are fighting the politics. Let's get after it. Next. Is it bad for the shutdown to end unless we have meaningful change about the costs of health care? Not just access, but costs. Because what difference does it make if you can get access if you can't afford it? Should it not end until then? Republican member of Congress Randy Fine is here. Our Democratic member of Congress, Suhas Subramanyam, is here also. Suhas is against the deal, meaning, tell me if I have it wrong, but Representative, you believe keep the shutdown going until what?
Well, to be clear, I want the shutdown to end. I just want a couple of things. First of all, certainly we've done nothing in this process to address healthcare costs doubling or tripling for a lot of families around the country. That's essentially what these tax cuts are doing. They're making these healthcare premiums affordable. You're right that we have a cost crisis, and I'm doing a lot, sometimes in a bipartisan way, to try to address that. That's definitely a big issue. But what we're trying to do actually is prevent a healthcare crisis from happening next year. I also, something you didn't talk about is the fact that Congress continues to fund the government, and yet this administration takes that money and spends it in contrast to the way Congress allocated it. And put it in a different way, I have federal workers and contractors who are bearing the brunt of this shutdown in my district, who are fed up with Republicans and the Trump administration for the way they've been treated, the way they've been fired and furloughed. And so I think they wanted to see some real change as well. I think this promise to not fire people for a couple months is good. That was a good development, but I'd like to see more to protect federal workers too.
I'm with you, and I'm going to get back to that point. But let me pivot to Randy for a second. The idea of you guys have the numbers. It doesn't matter if the Democrats in the House don't want this to end. If you guys all vote party line, you'll get it through, assuming the vote happens in the Senate tonight to get through the filibuster. But the idea of John Thune saying, hey, if we get through this, I'll give you a vote on the ACA subsidies. Do you like that idea, and how would you vote on the subsidies?
So thanks for having me. Look, this is not actually a debate about costs. I'm glad that the Democrats have stopped taking us hostage to keep the government open. But Democrats weren't trying to cut costs. What they were trying to do was hide costs by borrowing money from our children and grandchildren to subsidize a failed so-called Affordable Care Act problem. See, the costs of healthcare are what they are. You talked a lot about it. Nothing the Democrats want would actually change that. They just wanted to hide how expensive it has become. I think what Republicans want to do is figure out how we lower the cost of healthcare, but you can't do that when the government is closed for the reason, Chris, that you said. It is a complicated issue with many constituencies. I actually chaired the healthcare committee in Florida for 2 of the years I was in the legislature. I understand how you fix the problem, but you can't do it when the government is closed. And simply trying to get money in the middle of the night to subsidize unaffordable Affordable Care Act plans is not the way to do it.
Suhas, respond.
Just because the federal government is shut down doesn't mean Congress has to be closed. Mike Johnson closed Congress. We could have been open this entire time and talking about ways we can fix healthcare, lower the cost of healthcare. We could have done several bills. I'm a co-sponsor of several bills to actually lower the cost of healthcare,
Chris,
many of which are bipartisan. But in this past month, we did nothing. Congress wasn't even open. So if we had been open, maybe we could have had this conversation.
Chris,
Randy, you're nodding your head. Were you guys open and I didn't know it?
No. With all due respect, it is quite rich for Democrat politicians who were getting paid during the shutdown to say that our staffs who did not, both mine and your other guest staffs who were not getting paid, and all of the other federal workers to go to work and figure out this problem. I refused my paycheck while the government was shut down. Let's be clear. The politicians got paid, but our staff didn't. So we could have made them come
I
to
didn't
work
take pay
every
either,
day.
just to be clear.
No. There was no
hold on a
choice
second.
here.
Hold on a second.
There was no choice here.
Randy.
Yep.
Randy, hold on.
It's a disingenuous argument to make. Yeah.
Randy,
we could have been open this
second.
entire time. I mean, the
No,
reality
I know,
is
Randy,
we
it's
can go to, we can have
hold on,
hearings.
Randy.
Right now, right?
Chris,
Hold
facts
on
matter.
a second. Hold on. Guys, hold on. You're playing semantics. No need.
No, I'm not.
The reason you guys get paid is because you're not part of the discretionary spending. And it would be
Chris,
tricky to make it so that you guys don't get paid. But that's not the issue. It's not the issue.
No.
You're getting paid.
Chris. No, it's not true.
What, Randy?
The politicians
not
got
true?
paid. The politicians got
I know.
paid. But the
I know.
staff
That's
that
what I
work
just
in
said.
our offices, the staff that work in our offices, the committee staff,
Didn't get paid.
all of the people that make
I know.
Congress work, none of them have gotten paid.
No,
so
but
the notion that
Randy,
they should
hold
have
on.
gone to work for free to solve this problem, it's disingenuous and
Randy,
it's not right. If you want to
I
solve
know,
a
but
problem,
Randy,
you pay
it's
people to go to work.
Randy, it's also disingenuous to make it seem like it's about the staffers. Oh, the poor staffers. I'm not worried about your staffers. I'll tell you who I'm worried about. The American people, and you know Mike Johnson played to the Democrats' stunt, and the shutdown is a stunt. They're always stunts, and nobody with a brain on their shoulders thinks you're going to get something meaningful at the other end of a shutdown because it's never happened. And Suhas, you know it, I know it, Randy knows it, everybody knows it. You guys just switch rationales every time you're in the minority. And we get it. That's the binary system. But Mike Johnson could have had negotiations ongoing, and he didn't want to match tactic for tactic. You may disagree. That's my take. But Suhas, here's my now point of ire for you, let's call it. I don't believe in histrionics, but you knew you weren't going to get what you wanted through the shutdown. So this is to show that you are willing to fight, okay? Access for the ACA subsidies is a start. It is an ingredient of this. But are you willing to put a solution for costs in front of people after that vote? Because that's only a little piece of the problem. No disrespect to people who need the subsidies. I know they do. But it's just a little piece of the affordability problem.
I wouldn't call it a little piece because you'll see, everyone will see in the mail their premiums next year. And when the ACA tax credits are not there, then not only do people who get those tax credits see their insurance go up, but the people who don't see their insurance go up as well. It's the same reason why cuts to Medicaid include the fact that people not on Medicaid will see their insurance goes up. It just, the cost of care goes up for hospitals because they have to provide free care. But I'll say this, even before this vote, I put forward many measures to actually address the cost of care. But what I would like to see is, I disagree with the fact that this had no chance of passing. Maybe it won't pass now because of the politics, but we had Republicans introducing extensions of the ACA tax credits, right? This is a wildly bipartisan and widely popular idea to at least extend these tax credits. It was mostly about how long you extend them. Do you make them permanent? Do you do it for 1 year? But in any case, I don't like this kind of pinky swear we'll have a vote in December. We've broken a lot of trust over the past couple of years. So I wanted to have that vote right now before we continue this CR. And I still want to do more on when it comes to federal workers and contractors as well.
Randy, give me a last word on what you think happens if the Senate votes this. What happens with the reconciliation? What is it, Wednesday?
Well, I think we'll come back, and I hope that we'll vote to open the government. And then I hope we'll tackle the cost of health care, not masking the costs as the Democrats have proposed, but actually coming up with a way to bring costs down so we don't have to subsidize it, borrowing money from our kids and grandkids to hide the actual cost. Healthcare costs are a big issue, and I think we all agree on that. There are solutions to that problem, and I think Republicans are going to be ready to tackle them after the government is back open.
I haven't heard a solution from Republicans yet, but I'm looking forward to that.
I'll tell you what, though, what we're all right about here, whoever makes the biggest impression on the majority of Americans on the issue of what health care costs wins the midterms. I don't care what the distraction is at that moment. I don't care what culture war you guys bait us with that we all take the bait on. This is what will matter to the majority of Americans. So we'll stay on it, and you're always welcome to talk about it here. Randy, thank you. Suhas, thank you. I look forward to seeing what you do when you get back to work. Thank you both.
Thank you.
4 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, I wanted, no disrespect to them, Senator Fetterman. Why? Senators are more important in this process, and I believe he's a fair broker. I don't care if you like his politics or not. That's not the point. The point is, can you listen to what he's thinking, and is he telling you something authentically? And I think he checks those boxes. But he's stuck in the votes, so we didn't get him. I was happy to talk to those guys about it. The Democrats are divided on this. Why? Because solutions are hard. Well, no, Medicare for all, they all want that. No, they don't all want that because they don't even know what it means. Is there a good answer, and what is this really about for Democrats? Because I'll be honest with you, I think this issue is more important to their fate than it is to the Republicans with MAGA and Trump in office. So, a guy on the left I really think is worth listening to. One of Bernie's former advisors, leader of the Rocha Revolution, Chuck Rocha, next. All right, bring in Chuck Rocha from the Rocha Revolution. Used to work with Bernie Sanders, understands the left. First of all, Chuck, what I want to ask you is, am I going to get a guess? There we go. Thanks. Chuck, first thing is, my suggestion that what we're seeing on the left is what we saw on the right, that MAGA swallowed up the GOP, same way the DSA is looking to swallow up the Democrats, the populist movement on each side prevailing. Do you see that happening on the left following suit or no?
After the election, there's been a lot of folks within the party all trying to take credit. You got everybody on the far left from Mondani going, it's all us. We're the future. Down in Virginia, you got Spanberger and the moderates going, no, it's us. You talked about something that was very interesting that connects these two, which is this populism piece and them talking about affordability. I know you've been talking about the price of insurance. You've been talking about healthcare for the last 30 minutes. That's really, really important. My firm knocked on 100,000 doors in New Jersey. And I thought the number one issue would be this affordability. And it was, but to your point, because I really think you're onto something here, it was about these insurance premium and not just ACA. This is way bigger than ACA, because when we would talk to folks, because insurance is going up for regular folks so much. To your point, you said earlier, a lot of folks are just like, look, if I'm under 35, I'll just pay for it out of pocket if I'm going to take that gamble if. So I think that that's something that you're scratching at that's going to be a through line through these next elections.
Because it's right up there with the mortgage or your rent vig now. You know, if you have a family and you need insurance, I mean, the vig is high. I just got my letter like a week or so ago. It's going up. Thank God I am not yet price sensitive, but almost everybody else is. And I believe they have the right issue on the left, and they can own the affordability issue. My question is how? You worked with Bernie. Again, I give him his respect. I was an early adopter of Bernie Sanders as a populist voice in this presidential context when I was at CNN. But he is heavy on the wrong, light on the right. Medicare for All is not a one-line solution.
To your point, there should be able to come to a solution that fixes and gives access and affordable health care to everybody. To your point is that lots of parties, lots of folks have kicked this can down the road or bit around the edges. I'm not saying Medicare for All is the end all be all, but if we can figure out how to take my Apple phone and put it in my watch, then we should be able to figure out health care. To your point, I got an ACA bill this week as well. For those of you watching this, what do rich people pay for ACA? That's if you've got the Cadillac healthcare that has no deductible. That's my healthcare. I have a lot of privilege. It went up from $2,100 a month to $2,500 a month. So now I'm looking at the ACA to say, well, what is the bronze plan? Because I don't feel like I need to pay $30,000 a year for healthcare. I'm a pretty healthy guy. I take care of myself. So this is just me on one little microcosm. Think about how everybody else is doing it. And then when I looked at the bronze plan, the deductible, Chris, was $7,800. Again, for me, I got privilege. I can afford to pay it, but I was thinking about the little guy down the road. We should be able to come to a compromise.
Well, you only come to a compromise, Chuck, when there's a value proposition on each side. Right now, it's just hiring people like you to figure out how to blame the other side and win this election. That's the commodity. You know, when these experts told me today, and this is the third time I've been told this, but you got to tell me something 3 times for it to sink in. You know, you could just pass along Congress that there's going to be a price cap on services and all of the different fee-for structure that matches Medicare, and all the government payouts would be based off that, and then the private sector, especially the big companies, they would echo it, and the cost structure would come down pretty fast. And I was like, one law? And they're like, yeah, one law, but all the stakeholders would come after you. And when we talk to the parties on both sides, they don't really have any interest in working with the other side on that kind of fix.
I just add a little bit to that. You were talking about the insurance companies being an easy foil, and they are. And lots of folks who have to deal with insurance companies, everybody hate insurance company because nobody hates to call that number and to file a claim. You have to fight with them over the claim. But there's one thing that nobody's really talking about is when you look at the PAC giving of an industry like the healthcare, they're not a partisan industry. They give lots of money to both parties. They give lots of money to Democrats and Republicans. And so they're in the rooms a lot of time to make sure that they're taking care of their bottom line, because it seems like we've cared more about the profits than we actually do delivering healthcare, which I think is the bottom line.
Yeah, that's the 1-2 punch. Is if you do this, Chuck, I'm not giving the money to you anymore. Oh, and by the way, I guarantee you I employ a crap ton of people in your district, and I'm going to take their jobs because you're choking me. Good luck with that. So the politics are very ugly, which is why the safe play is to blame, not to try to fix. Once again, the problem works better than any solution for those in power. Chuck, I love you and appreciate you. Thank you for the perspective. Until the next time.
Thank you, brother.
All right, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I told you there'd be more sports betting scandals, right? We saw basketball, now it's baseball. 2 pitchers accused of rigging their own pitches to make money. The response is, we're going to limit the amount of money that you can bet per pitch. Yeah, that's the fix. So what's going on here? What does it mean for what's happening to our national pastime? This is the man when it comes to what baseball means to us. He is a legend for good reason. Bob Costas joins us to talk about what this is and what it will be. Sports betting is going to be bigger than sports, okay? You're just starting to be told about it because the people in power are just starting to figure it out. 150 billion spent last year on sports. It's consuming the younger generations. It's never been easier, and it's all about the action. So I told you when it was the NBA, there are going to be other leagues involved, and the mob, which I'm not even talking about tonight, but that's going to be part of it everywhere. Nothing has been a boon to them since running numbers as online gambling. So Major League Baseball. 2 Cleveland Guardians pitchers charged yesterday with fraud, conspiracy, and bribery for scheming with bettors to rig their pitches for money. If convicted, they could get 65 years in prison. You want to bet if that's what happens? I take against. So what does this mean? What should we be focused on about this? Only one person I want to talk to. Legend in the world of communications, sportscasting, sure, but much more. And National Baseball Hall of Famer, Bob Costas. Good to see you, handsome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, CC. That's a lovely introduction. I don't know if these guys are going to do any time. For the record, Luis Ortiz's attorney says all the evidence against him is circumstantial and he will be exonerated. Class A's representatives haven't weighed in yet. But if they are found to have done what is alleged, then there's almost no wiggle room. They bet on a game in which they were involved. They weren't necessarily trying to throw the game. That's what a prop bet is. It's just one tiny portion of the game. But they bet on a game in which they were involved. And baseball's rules have been clear about that. Just ask the ghost of Pete Rose. If you bet on a game in which you are involved, automatic, permanent ineligibility. If you bet on another game within the league in which you're not involved, automatic 1-year suspension.
Look, I feel bad for Pete Rose, but second of all, if they dig into who's betting and how and in what way, it'll make steroids, look like, literally a layup. How big do you think this is, and how deep do you think they should go into unearthing who's betting on what sports amongst professional personnel?
Well, my sense of it is that it's not nearly as widespread as what steroids were at the height or depth of the so-called steroid era in the 90s and early 2000s. And the Players Association is never going to stand for the commissioner's office, even if they wanted to do it, if the commissioner wanted to do it, to say, hey, everybody, let us take a look at your cell phones. Let us see what you're doing. They'd have to turn up specific evidence that would come from some other place. And that other place is that all of these gambling outfits, whatever they may be, just like Vegas did through all the years, and now you got a zillion online operations where you can bet on your phone, all of them monitor for unusual traffic on particular games or particular situations within games. And that's the only time that an investigation ensues. Wait a minute. Why was there so much money bet on whether the first pitch to the leadoff guy from Emmanuel Clase would be a ball, or whether it would be a pitch of 95 miles an hour or less or more? Why was there so much bet on that? That's when the red flags come up. But unless that happens, I don't see how baseball overall is going to look into the cell phones and the off-hours activities of hundreds of players.
Do you think it's only a matter of time before we go from this to football and from football to hockey?
Well, it already happened in basketball. In the NBA, Jante Porter of the Toronto Raptors about a year or so ago was banned from the NBA for life. These prop bets are really where the trouble lies, because it's difficult and obvious if you're actually throwing a game, the outcome of the game. But let's say you're Jante Porter. He was not a star player. He was a bench player. So let's say the over-under on how many points he would score in a given game was 7 or 8. What he would do is he'd come into the game, feign a minor injury, come out before he exceeded or matched what the line was, or get into foul trouble, whatever it might be. And for a long time, that was under the radar. It didn't seem all that suspicious until some people began putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and saw that there was unusual action on Jante Porter, not exactly a superstar player, on what he would do in given games, and they figured out what was going on. That ought to be a cautionary tale in the NBA. What Clase and Ortiz are facing now, what they're facing now with the Guardians, that ought to be a cautionary tale for everybody in Major League Baseball. But why do people do stupid things? It's just easier to do stupid gambling things now because it's right in the palm of your hand.
Oh, it's so easy. There's none of these guys that doesn't have buddies around them that are betting on their games while they're sitting there watching them.
That's right.
I mean, the betting is contagious in a way that I've never seen it before. I've never been a gambling guy. I don't get off on the action and the risk. Like, I'm too much of a control freak. But you did make a very interesting point. One, people think these guys don't bet because they make money already. They don't get that it's about the action. Yep. And the eternal quest for more, not just how much you already have.
Yeah. In some cases, it's the action. In other cases, and it might be true here, maybe you're trying to help out a pal. Maybe you come from the Dominican Republic, like Clase does, all right? Now, he's making millions, and had he not made this huge mistake, would have been making mega millions on his next contract. Yeah. But maybe he says, look, I can just throw a ball outside, won't really affect my team, and my pals can bet on this and maybe make, 50 grand that doesn't mean that much to me, but means a lot to them. So
100%. Bob Costas, thank you so much. Love seeing you. See you again soon. Appreciate you.
Hope so. Thanks, CC.
Well, of course. We'll be right back. Leland Vittert picks up our coverage right now. Listen to this one, Leland. I'm told that they are starting the vote in the Senate now. I was told early on that one of the reasons it got delayed was Rand Paul was insisting on a vote on some kind of hemp bill.
Yes, he was indeed.
Kentucky.
Yeah, well,
priorities, brother.
Truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, especially here in Washington, D.C. You got to think about that one on this Monday night, folks. Chris, great show.